The broken shield. The orbital maintenance bay of Haven Station hummed with the constant vibration of massive engines, keeping humanity's largest deep space facility stable above the gas giant Kepler 442b. Marcus Chen wiped grease from his hands as he surveyed the damaged Zalaran battle armor spread across his workbench like the fragments of a fallen star. The armor's owner, Commander Zarathis, stood rigid in the corner of his workshop, her amber eyes burning with barely contained fury. Her muscular 7-foot frame was wrapped in a temporary pressure suit, but Marcus could see the purple-tinted skin of her face was marked with fresh battle scars. The Zalara were a proud warrior race, and accepting help from a human, especially a mere mechanic, was clearly eating at her pride. "You have one standard hour," she growled, her voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertone of her species. "If my armor is not battle-ready, I will personally ensure you're ejected from the nearest airlock." Marcus nodded calmly, already lost in studying the intricate alien technology. The war between humans and the Zalara had been raging for 3 years, but this temporary ceasefire had brought some of their wounded warriors to human medical facilities. What fascinated him wasn't the obvious damage, plasma burns, kinetic impacts, stress fractures, but the subtle design flaws he could see with fresh eyes. The Zalaran engineers were masters of their craft, but they'd been building the same way for centuries. Marcus had grown up tinkering with salvaged human tech, learning to make do with whatever parts he could find. That experience had taught him to see solutions others missed. As he worked, carefully removing damaged sections and preparing replacement components, he noticed how the armor's weight distribution was slightly off, putting unnecessary stress on the wearer's spine. The power coupling to the left gauntlet was routed inefficiently, creating a weak point that enemy weapons could exploit. Small things, details that even elite Zalaran technicians had overlooked because they were too close to their own traditions. Commander. Zarathis watched him work with growing confusion. Where she expected crude human repairs, she saw careful artistry. Marcus wasn't just fixing her armor, he was improving it. When he reinforced a stress point she didn't even know existed, her eyes widened slightly. "Why do you care so much about perfection?" she asked, her tone softer than before. "This is not your armor, not your life it protects." Marcus looked up from his work, meeting her gaze. "Because someone's life depends on this armor. That's reason enough." Something shifted in her expression, a crack in the warrior's mask revealing something more vulnerable underneath. In her culture, warriors were expected to be self-sufficient, to never show weakness. But here was this quiet human, investing his skill and care into protecting someone he barely knew, asking nothing in return. As the hour neared its end, Marcus made the final connections and stepped back. The armor gleamed under the workshop. Lights. But more than that. It felt different. Stronger. Complete in a way it had never been before. Commander Zarathis approached slowly, almost reverently, to don her restored armor. The recognition. The armor settled around Commander Zarathis, like a second skin, but something was profoundly different. The familiar weight was gone, replaced by perfect balance that made her feel as if she could dance through space itself. The power flowed cleanly through every circuit. The displays were crisp and responsive, and for the first time in months of brutal combat, she felt truly protected. She moved through a series of combat forms, testing the armor's response. Each motion was fluid, effortless. The improvements Marcus had made weren't flashy, but they were perfect. Solving problems she hadn't even realized existed. Her breathing was easier, her movements more precise, and the chronic pain in her lower back from the armor's poor weight distribution had vanished entirely. "Impossible," she whispered, staring at her gauntleted hands. The diagnostic readouts showed power efficiency improvements of nearly 20%. The structural integrity was higher than when the armor was first forged. Marcus was cleaning his tools, seemingly unaware of the miracle he'd just performed. Everything feel all right? I made a few small adjustments to the... Small adjustments? Zarathis spun to face him, her voice carrying a note of awe that she tried to suppress. You have done something no Zalaran engineer achieved in 3 centuries of refinement. She began removing the armor carefully, her movements ceremonial, rather than practical. As each piece came away, she examined it with the eye of a warrior who had worn battle gear for most of her adult life. Every modification was subtle but significant, every improvement born from genuine understanding rather than mere technical knowledge. In Zalaran culture, there was an ancient tradition called the Velthar, the bonding of souls through the strengthening of one's shield. It was rarely invoked and never with an outsider, but the law was clear. One who truly strengthened another's protection, who showed such care for their survival, could claim the deepest bond their society recognized. Other Zalaran, warriors had gathered in the workshop's doorway, drawn by rumors of the impossible repair. They watched in stunned silence as their commander knelt on one knee before the human mechanic, her head bowed in the deepest gesture of respect their culture possessed. Marcus Chen of the human tribe, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the workshop. You have strengthened my shield, and in doing so, strengthened my soul. By the ancient laws of the Velthar, I name you Keththis, heart-bonded shield. If you will accept this bond, you become part of my life song, and I become part of yours. The gathered Zalaran warriors began a low, harmonic chant, a traditional song of celebration for life bonds that hadn't been heard on a battlefield in decades. Marcus stood frozen, tool still in hand, trying to process what was happening. I don't understand, he stammered. I just fixed your armor. That's my job. Zarathis raised her head, and Marcus saw tears glittering in her amber eyes. You saw flaws that our greatest engineers missed. You cared for my survival as if it were your own. In our culture, such devotion can only come from one whose soul resonates with ours. The armor doesn't lie, Marcus Chen. It fits me better than it ever has because you crafted it with the heart of one who truly knows me. She extended her hand, still kneeling. Will you accept this bond? Will you let our life songs become one? Marcus looked around at the alien faces watching him with expressions of hope and celebration. These weren't enemies anymore. They were people, and they were offering him something precious, something that spoke to the loneliness he'd carried since leaving Earth. Slowly, he set down his tool and took her hand. The moment their skin touched, something electric passed between them. Recognition, understanding, and the promise of something neither had expected to find in the darkness between stars. The Queen's Gambit. 3 months after the life-bonding ceremony, the fragile ceasefire shattered like glass. Queen Velandra herself, ruler of the Zalaran Empire, had arrived at the edge of human space with a battle fleet that blotted out the stars. Her flagship, the Crimson Sovereignty, was a living weapon the size of a small moon, its bio-organic hull pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of barely contained rage. Marcus stood beside Zarathis on the observation deck of Haven Station, watching the massive alien fleet arrange itself in battle formation. The station's human defenders were brave, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Admiral Rebecca Torres had already begun evacuation procedures, but everyone knew there wasn't enough time. She's here for me, Zarathis said quietly, her hand finding Marcus's. In the months since their bonding, they'd grown closer than either had thought possible. She'd taught him the warrior's code, while he'd shown her the human capacity for innovation and adaptation. I broke the most sacred law of our people by bonding with an alien. Marcus squeezed her hand. You chose love over prejudice. If that's a crime, then their laws are wrong. Through the station's communication array, Queen Velandra's voice resonated with the authority of absolute power. Her image appeared on every screen. Tall, regal, her silver hair flowing like liquid metal, her violet eyes burning with cold fury. Humans of Haven Station, the Queen's voice carried the harmonic power that made all Zalara natural speakers. You harbor one who has betrayed the purity of our bloodline. Surrender Commander Zarathis and her contamination, and we will allow your evacuation. Refuse, and we will cleanse this system of your presence. Admiral Torres appeared on split screen, her weathered face set in determination. Your Majesty, Commander Zarathis is under the protection of the human colonial authority. We don't surrender our allies to anyone. The Queen's expression didn't change, but the bioluminescent patterns on her flagship shifted to deeper, more aggressive colors. Then you have chosen extinction. What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of ordering an immediate attack, Queen Velandra's personal transport detached from the flagship, a sleek, organic vessel that moved through space like a predator through water. It docked with Haven Station directly, and the Queen herself strode aboard with only a small honor guard. Marcus and Zarathis were escorted under heavy guard to the station's main conference room, where Queen Velandra waited like a force of nature contained in royal robes. Up close, her resemblance to Zarathis was unmistakable. The same proud bearing, the same fierce intelligence, but where Zarathis had learned compassion, the Queen radiated only cold authority. "My daughter," the Queen said, and Marcus felt. Zarathis stiffened beside him. "You were to be my heir, the future of our empire. Instead, you throw away millennia of genetic purity for this human." "His name is Marcus," Zarathis replied firmly, "and he has shown me that strength comes not from purity, but from the courage to grow beyond our limitations." Queen Velandra's gaze shifted to Marcus, and he felt as if he were being dissected by those violet eyes. "You are the contamination that has corrupted my daughter's judgment. What could a mere human offer that our greatest warriors could not?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I offered her what she'd never received from her own people, someone who valued her life more than her usefulness. Someone who saw her not as a weapon to be perfected, but as a person deserving of care." For the first time, something flickered in the Queen's expression. "And what do you know of caring for a Zalaran warrior, human? What do you know of the responsibilities that come with royal blood? I know that she fights every day with armor that could get her killed because your engineers are too proud to see its flaws," Marcus replied. "I know she carries scars from battles she fought alone because showing vulnerability is seen as weakness. I know she's brilliant and brave and deserving of love, not just duty." The Queen was silent for a long moment, studying them both with calculating eyes. The Heart's Truth Queen, Velandra, circled them slowly, her royal robes whispering against the station's metal floor. With each step, Marcus could feel the weight of her judgment, the terrible power she wielded over both their lives. But something in her expression had changed when he'd spoken about Zarathis, a crack in the imperial mask that revealed something unexpected underneath. "Love." The Queen repeated the word as if tasting something foreign. "You speak of love as if it were a strength rather than a weakness. Our people have been warriors for 10,000 years, human. We survive because we are strong, because we do not allow sentiment to cloud our judgment." "And how has that worked out?" Marcus asked, surprising himself with his boldness. "Your people are dying in a war that could have been prevented by communication instead of conquest. Your greatest warriors fight alone, never allowing themselves to be vulnerable enough to truly connect with others. You call it strength, but it looks like loneliness to me." Zarathis placed a warning hand on his arm, but Queen Velandra held up a hand for silence. "Continue, human. You interest me." Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that his next words could doom them all. "I've studied Zalaran technology, Your Majesty. It's incredible. Organic ships that heal themselves, armor that bonds with its wearer, weapons that respond to emotion. But it's all individual. Every piece of tech is designed for one person, never for cooperation. You've created the perfect warriors, but you've forgotten how to be a people. The Queen's honor guard shifted restlessly, hands moving toward weapons, but she gestured for them to remain still. And humans are different? We're weaker individually, Marcus admitted, but we're stronger together. When I fixed Zarathus's armor, I didn't just repair it, I learned from it. Human and Zalaran engineering combined created something better than either could achieve alone. That's what love is, Your Majesty. It's not weakness, it's synthesis. It's becoming more than you could be alone. Queen Velandra stopped pacing and faced them directly. When she spoke, her voice carried a note of vulnerability that seemed to surprise even her. You speak of loneliness as if you know it well, human. I do. I've spent most of my life fixing things in the dark corners of space stations, surrounded by people but never really connecting with any of them. Until I met your daughter. Marcus squeezed Zarathus's hand. She didn't make me weaker. She made me want to be better than I was. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, to everyone's shock, Queen Velandra's composure cracked entirely. Tears began flowing down her regal cheeks, not the controlled display of a monarch, but the raw grief of a mother. Do you think I don't know loneliness? She whispered. Do you think ruling an empire of warriors means I have companions? I have had 3 life bonds in my reign. All 3 died in battle, fighting alone because that is what our culture demands. I have buried more friends than you have years, human, and I have done it with the strength our people prize so highly. She turned to Zarathus, and her voice broke slightly. When I heard you had chosen a life bond with an alien, my first thought was not anger, it was envy. Envy that you had found someone who could see past the warrior to the person beneath. Someone who would strengthen your shield not because duty demanded it, but because they could not bear to see you harmed. Zarathus rose and approached her, mother slowly, as one might approach a wounded predator. Then why the fleet? Why the threats? Because I am queen, Velandra replied, straightening slightly. Because there are factions in our government who see your bonding as weakness, as corruption of our genetic purity. They demanded I cleanse this shame from our bloodline, or face civil war. She looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect. But perhaps it is time our people learned a different kind of strength. The Queen moved to the conference room's view screen, where her vast fleet waited in perfect formation. With a gesture, she activated her personal communication array. Warriors of the Zalaran Empire. Her voice rang with renewed authority. Today, we witness not corruption, but evolution. Not weakness, but a new kind of strength. The bond between my daughter and this human represents not the contamination of our bloodline, but its elevation. We return to Zalara not as conquerors, but as students. It is time we learned what it truly means to be strong. The New Alliance. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, a marvel of combined human and Zalaran engineering that orbited the border between their 2 territories. The station itself was a testament to what their peoples could achieve together. Human ingenuity merged with Zalaran biotechnology to create something unprecedented. The station's living walls pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns that responded to the emotions of its inhabitants, while human-designed modular systems allowed for rapid adaptation and expansion. Gardens with plants from both worlds created atmosphere and beauty, while workshops like Marcus's own had become centers of innovation where the 2 technologies learned from each other. Zarathus joined him at the viewport, her new armor gleaming, with the subtle improvements that had become his signature. But she wasn't alone. She was followed by a group of young Zalaran engineers and human technicians who had been studying together, their animated conversation a mix of both languages as they debated the finer points of biomechanical integration. "The YA's first graduating class of the Unity Technical Institute," she said proudly, watching the mixed group of students. 3 years ago, who would have believed this possible?" Marcus smiled, remembering how impossibly far apart their worlds had seemed when he'd first repaired her armor. Now, human doctors worked alongside Zalaran healers, sharing knowledge that saved lives on both sides. Engineers collaborated on projects that neither species could have conceived alone. Most importantly, families were forming, not just between humans and Zalara, but within the growing community of beings who saw themselves as something new. Queen Valandra arrived for her monthly inspection, but these visits had evolved from formal royal duties into something more personal. She'd taken quarters on the station, claiming it was necessary for diplomatic oversight, but Marcus suspected she simply enjoyed being part of a community where she could be more than just a monarch. "The Council of Worlds has approved the proposal," she announced, joining them at the viewport. "The Unity Station model will be replicated at 12 border systems. The war is officially over, and the integration period begins." It hadn't been easy. There were still factions on both sides who saw the alliance as betrayal, who preferred the certainty of conflict to the complexity of cooperation. But the success of Unity Station had proven that the two species could not only coexist, but thrive together. Marcus watched a human cargo ship dock alongside a Zalaran biotransport, their crews working together to transfer supplies that would benefit both their worlds. In the distance, joint patrol fleets maintained peace not through superior firepower, but through the visible symbol of unity they represented. "There's something I need to tell you both," Marcus said, taking Zarathis's hand while Queen Valandra looked on with interest. "The medical scan results came back today." Zarathis's eyes widened. They'd been trying for over a year, working with the best doctors from both species to overcome the biological barriers between their races. The possibility of children had been theoretical, requiring careful genetic therapy and constant monitoring. "It worked?" she whispered. Marcus nodded, his smile breaking into a grin. "Dr. Williams says everything looks perfect. Human-Zalaran hybrid. Genetics are stable. We're going to have a daughter." Queen Valandra's reaction surprised them both. The formidable ruler, conqueror of star systems and commander of vast fleets, began crying tears of joy. "A granddaughter," she whispered. "The first of a new generation that will know no barriers between worlds." As they stood together on the observation deck, watching ships from both species work in harmony, Marcus reflected on how a simple armor repair had changed everything. He'd thought he was just fixing broken equipment, but he'd actually been helping to repair the broken relationship between two peoples. Their daughter would grow up in a universe where the barriers that had once seemed insurmountable were just history lessons. She would be living proof that different didn't mean enemy, that strength came not from purity but from the courage to grow beyond the limitations of the past. In the distance, a new ship was approaching, neither purely human nor Zalaran in design, but something entirely new. The first vessel built entirely by the mixed crews of Unity Station, incorporating the best of both technologies and representing the future they were building together. Marcus squeezed Zarathis's hand as they watched their tomorrow approach, carrying with it the promise that love, understanding, and the willingness to see beyond differences could indeed change the universe. Character profiles and current locations: Marcus Chen, human mechanic and engineer, age 28. Currently standing on the observation deck of Unity Station, which orbits in neutral space between human and Zalaran territories. The station is positioned near the star system, Kepler 442, where the binary stars create beautiful aurora effects visible through the viewport. Marcus has evolved from a solitary repair technician to the co-director of the Unity Technical Institute. Commander, Zarathis, Zalaran warrior and diplomat, age 34, Zalaran years, standing beside Marcus on Unity Station's observation deck. Born on the Zalaran homeworld of Thesiandra, she now serves as the military liaison for the new alliance. Her purple-tinted skin bears ceremonial tattoos marking her life bond with Marcus, and she wears the advanced armor that has become the template for joint human-Zalaran military equipment. Queen Velandra, Zalaran monarch, age unknown but estimated over 200 years. Currently residing in the royal quarters of Unity Station, she has transitioned from absolute ruler to diplomatic overseer of the integration process. Her silver hair and violet eyes mark her as one of the ancient bloodlines of Zalara. She stands, with Marcus and Zarathis, having found in this new alliance the connection and purpose that centuries of lonely rule had denied her. Dr. Rebecca Williams, human xenobiologist and physician, age 45. Working in the Unity Station medical bay, she leads the breakthrough research into human Zalaran hybrid genetics. Originally from Earth's Luna colony, she relocated to the station to pursue the unprecedented opportunity to study interspecies medicine. Admiral Rebecca Torres, human military commander, age 52. Currently stationed aboard the human battleship Resolute, which patrols the border systems as part of the joint peacekeeping fleet. Her decision to protect Zarathis during the initial crisis helped prevent a war and establish the foundation for the current alliance. The Unity Station itself orbits in a region similar to the L4 Lagrange point between Earth and Luna, but instead positioned between the human colony world of New Geneva and the Zalaran outpost of Velthis Minor. This location provides strategic access to both territories while maintaining neutral space for diplomatic and scientific cooperation.